The gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Blum, who is the chairman of the Subcommittee on Agriculture, Energy, and Trade, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Shabbat, and thank you to our panelists today for appearing here. Appreciate it very much. This is for Mr. Kerwin from the Commerce Department. In your testimony, I believe you mentioned that Secretary Ross submitted a comprehensive plan to integrate resources and strategies of the state trade promotion agencies into the overall federal trade promotion program. Can you talk to us about that a little bit? What are some of the major collaborative initiatives of this reorganization plan?
Thank you, and be happy to talk about that. You know, we've kind of referred to a little bit in some of our discussions. One certainly is making sure that all staff that interact with U.S. companies are trained. We constantly heard in our working group meetings, we've been doing a lot of focus on just general training, and I think there's been a stronger desire to get more in depth. So beyond some of the technical terms that we talk about, but to really get in more in depth to make sure our counselors out there that are working with, as Ann says, in that face-to-face with small businesses are actually able to respond and give them a direct answer that they need and guide them into the right place. Obviously, information is a real key, making sure that small businesses have the information they need. It could be for one of our Department of Commerce top market reports that talk about what the industry opportunities are overseas, our country commercial guides, making sure that all the regulations that a company would face in a particular market it's transparent and readily available to both our counselors and to small businesses, focusing on that. So training, also developing a strategy with each of the states. So each of the states, as Ann has talked about, each of the states have different sectors that they focus on. Could be Kansas with aerospace. You know, we were thinking about the other day with Puerto Rico with also has aerospace, chemicals, and a few others. Pharmaceuticals is another part of their plan, for instance. Making sure that we recognize the priorities of the states, what events they want to go to, and make it transparent that we see what events and help recruit for the events that the states are sponsoring, as well as make it apparent to the states what events that on the federal side that we're working on as well. So a lot of that is coordination across the board.
Currency exchange rates obviously have an impact on trade, foreign trade. Stronger dollar makes our exports more expensive. Do you think that currency exchange rates has a outsized negative impact on smaller companies who export more so than the large companies? That's for anybody.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, on currency issues, we defer to the Treasury Department on that. But I would say that, you know, alluding to the comments we had earlier, really the focus is really on how fast overseas markets are growing. Really makes a huge difference in the availability of, you know, U.S. companies to find partners and to actually make sales.
Larger companies can probably weather the storm, though.
Yeah.
I assume the smaller companies maybe can't weather the storm if we have a strong dollar.
And that's why I agree with that. I think you really want to think about Ex-Im Bank for small companies, and with something that we oftentimes do is refer banks to Ex-Im Bank to help mitigate that risk, that currency risk.
What percentage of their guarantee portfolio is small businesses, Ex-Im Bank? Do you happen to know?
Well, right now it's above 20% right now.
Of the total portfolio?
Yeah, if not more. It's actually because of the cap of $10 million on any of their guarantees. It's pretty high right now.
And then the last question I have is, and Secretary Ross comes from the private sector, so I know for a fact he is very good at measuring things. And my question to you is how do you measure the effectiveness of your efforts? Do you look at overall trade? How do you measure? How do we measure if you're getting the job done or not?
Right, and certainly we do look at the GDP and the amount of how you know, the number of jobs we've created, the number of exports that have been supported by federal agency programs are all things we look at. We also monitor sort of we do surveys with small businesses all the time. Actually, once a year we do a big survey on how client satisfaction. Did we meet the needs of exporters and companies that?
And are we getting better? Staying the same?
Yes,
or
we
getting
are.
Worse?
No, actually, we've got 9 out of 10 companies in the last survey we did said they would refer fellow companies to Department of Commerce services, for instance, which is actually very high. So we're very proud of that particular number. But
If
that's
you could
something we-
supply our committee with a copy of that
Absolutely.
survey results, it'd be nice to see the trend over the last 5 years. That'd be most helpful.
Thank you. Will do.
And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Gentleman yield